Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video what I want to look at is, with the second wave of COVID now in full swing in the UK, a statement from the Independent Sage, an independent scientific advisory group, who are saying it's not too late to turn the tide and to put a cap on it, to blunt it, but that action is needing to be taking place over the next 2 weeks, not the next 2 months. It cannot be left. And what I want to focus on in this video is a rather interesting, alarming even, depending on where you live, map of the UK and the capacity for people in different parts of the UK to get COVID tests. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So looking at Europe, first of all, where obviously the second wave started earlier than it did in the UK. And Germany and France, two very comparable countries, I hope everyone will agree. In Germany, they've got their second wave. They're in the middle of their second wave, but you can also see that in terms of cases, they've levelled it off. We don't know what will happen over the next few weeks and months, but we do know that Germany, of the larger nations of Europe, got their response the most correct in the first wave. There's every reason to believe in the second wave. I mean, for goodness sake, they're coping so well, they can even take our COVID tests and process them in their labs, along with Italy as well. We look at France, that's not happening with France. France have not blunted their second wave. So who are we going to be more likely to follow? Or are we, after the second wave has peaked everywhere, are we going to be looking back and see that actually Germany did it best, France wasn't good, but actually the UK was by far the worst? That's what we want to avoid. Like before, the UK has more time to look at this. So Independent Sage came up with 10 recommendations for the way that the government could actually help, really help. And they're all worth talking about. And I may well get onto some of the others even tomorrow potentially. But there's one that I really want to talk about, and that is testing. And I think part of that is because the other recommendations, it's worth knowing about, it's worth discussing. If we're going to be honest, Boris Johnson's government are not going to follow them. But on testing, maybe they will try. Whether they'll be effective is another matter, but maybe they will try. Here is an image that was produced in the Times. Now, they call it the test appointment lottery. Map of the UK, where the colour coding is as follows. So if it's a region that is gold, then basically when people needed a COVID test, they were able to ring up and get a COVID test. You can see straight away Northern Ireland, with one exception there, superb. Some parts of Scotland, I'm going to come on to that as well. Then the other colour is blue. Now, the very dark blue means, according to their key, about 80% of the time, if you needed a test, you could get a test. And it's a sliding scale downwards. The paler the blue, the less chance you had, right down to about 20%. Again, these are exact figures, so they're likely to be ranges. Another thing that was quite interesting is the Times noted that in a lot of areas, timing was important. When you booked the test was important as well. And it also made the point, just for anyone who will want some practical advice from this, they also said that persistent people were more likely to get a test if you kept trying. Now, the way they did this is they chose a few postcodes in each of these regions, counties and what have you, and they kept trying to get tests, book tests. So they, based on their own data, they didn't book tests, they weren't using tests, but they were trying to find out where could they get them. And this is super interesting, and I'm going to have to explain a few things for people outside the UK, but maybe even some people in the UK. So, Northern Ireland, we can see there, apart from one little region there, and even that's dark blue, is gold. That means they get a test when they want a test, when they need a test. Northern Ireland, of course, has largely followed the lead of the Republic of Ireland rather than the rest of the UK. Northern Ireland has done better than the rest of the UK. They even got their tracing app up and running much more quickly. Again, they were taking their lead from south rather than east. Then other things become stark. So look at Britain. Scotland, way better than England and Wales. Way better. Because you look at Scotland. Now, for those, just to be clear about where the border is between Scotland and England. So I'm going to create myself a little icon here. I haven't created it. I've nicked it. Little coronavirus icon so I can do a pointer. So you've got this gold area here, which I also want to have a little bit of talk about. I don't want to go too mad about it and bring in sort of devolutionary and independence politics, but I'm going to have to do a little bit. And then you've got these darker blue regions. Now, they're not, they're... So what we're saying, and this dark blue band down here just below the gold is also Scotland. The much paler blue below that is England. That's where England begins. Now, I'll do Scotland first because Scotland's fairly obvious. Scotland, doing way better. Not doing as well as Northern Ireland. And also there is disparity here because there are regions of Scotland around here. Now, I don't want to call them the SNP heartlands, but I'll leave that one out there for when I need to discuss England. But there are disparities here. There are parts of Scotland that are not as well serviced as other parts of Scotland. And it's not just the more densely populated parts either, because you've got densely populated parts down here as well. But so you can straight away say, in terms of Britain, Scotland doing way better than England, way better than Wales. Wales doesn't really have any dark blue bits at all. It's got medium blue bits. Even the medium blue bits, are still not satisfactory. So then you look at England. Now, the really pale blue all around here, but where you really notice it is that you look here and you think, right, in the north of England, you've got, in terms of darkish blues, you've got the southeast and the east, and you've got a little bit of the North Midlands. It looks very much like, see, I'd be about here. That's very much pale blue. The bit to my southwest with the north, what you'd call North Midlands, like Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire area. So there's some darkish blue there. But where you have the bulk of the dark blue is around here. Now, you may ask yourself, so what's special about this area here? Well, it's where most people live. That's true. That's true. But also, you've got quite a lot of people who live around here as well. But these are a bit more empty. The other thing about this is that dark blue area to the east and the southeast of England are the Tory heartlands. These are the Conservative heartlands. Because when the local lockdown started, one thing I couldn't help noticing was these regional lockdowns, which were controlled by central government, not regional governments. We should be passing this on to regional local authorities. We're not. The Westminster government, Boris Johnson's government, number 10, are still deciding these things and then telling the local authorities what's happening. They don't half seem to be clobbering Labour-held areas, Labour constituencies, Labour councils. And it also looks like, isn't it interesting, that the better... None of the responses are good. And I cannot emphasise this enough. Nowhere in England and Wales has a gold region. There's not a single county in England or Wales that has a gold bit. I cannot emphasise that strongly enough. That is stark. But where we're talking about the relative distribution, it's in the Tory heartlands. Now, a lot of England is Tory now. A lot of this part of the north of England is very blue these days. Not in terms of this blue, Conservative blue. But, and that's what makes me think, so surely those Conservative MPs in these constituencies should be raising merry hell, because they'll be in constituencies that are screaming about not being able to get a test. You know, Jacob Rees-Mogg, the leader of the House, member of Boris Johnson's government, was saying people should stop complaining about not being able to get a test and just start acknowledging how brilliant the government's been. Well, if you're in these areas, there's still quite a lot of people who can't get a test when they need them, but it's far fewer than around here. I think those Conservative MPs will be getting quite a lot of emails from constituents saying, I've been ringing all day and I've not been able to get a test. And if you're in that position, by the way, and you haven't emailed your local MP, whether they're Labour, Conservative, Lib Dem, whoever, you should inundate them, no matter which party they're a member of. So isn't that interesting? And no gold areas at all. So that even means the areas that the Conservatives sort of will be their heartlands again in the future. I cannot believe that they will hold on to the north of England at the next general election. Many things can happen, but I really can't see it. But even the areas that are theirs are not doing terribly well when you compare to particularly Northern Ireland, but even parts of Scotland. And if you take the overall picture, I mean, the worst region in Scotland is better than the best region in Wales, and is the equal of the very best regions in England. Scotland is way out ahead, and Northern Ireland is another level altogether. And what it also highlights is just how much it could be done. There's no reason why it couldn't be done. Scotland has a smaller population than England, of course, but it also has less money. But nonetheless, they're managing it better than we are. I mean, in isolation, if you cut off Scotland, the people of Scotland could reasonably say, well, why can't we do as well as Northern Ireland? And that's a reasonable, criticism there. But if you're in England or Wales, you should be looking, hang on a minute. We should be doing as well as Northern Ireland. It's part of the UK. Why can't we do as well as Northern Ireland? But if we can't do as well as Northern Ireland for whatever reason, which has a fractious political system at the best of times, can we at least not do as well as Scotland? It proves that it can be done. Because, I keep pointing at countries south of everyone, us in the UK, on the continent, and saying, well, there's countries there that can manage it. Why can't we? But there's nations within the UK that can manage it. Why can't we? Why can't we? We can, obviously. Our government are choosing not to. They're choosing not to because instead of getting the people who'd be really good at delivering a test and trace system, because there are two types of test and trace that are done. There's the NHS do some, a small number. They're done well. Then there's the private companies who do them very badly. But because they do the bulk of the tests are done badly. And it's really that simple. The government could have chosen to give test and trace to the NHS. And then we would be doing as well or better than Scotland. Because the whole of Britain should be doing as well as Northern Ireland. There's no reason not to. So England and Wales could have done as well or better than Scotland. But they chose not to. And at this point in time, they could choose to accept that giving it to private companies, especially ones who don't know what they're doing, they need to cut their losses. It's not worked. But no, they're doubling down on it. They're as someone put it, they're trying to compensate for the failures of outsourcing with more outsourcing. But there we go. Those are my thoughts on it. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.